Okay, hello, everyone. This is another episode of the Love Your Liver live stream. I'm Dr. Garrett Smith, known as the Nutrition Detective around these YouTube parts. And we have changed, those of you who are watching this later, you'll notice that we changed the time. I did put out an update, and this is going to be the new time for a good long while. Monday mornings, 10 a.m. Arizona time, which is Mountain Standard Time. Part of the year we're the same as California. Part of the year we're Mountain Time. So Arizona's weird. So you're just going to have to deal with it because I'm going to put my time on there because it's the time I go by. So I do have a couple little topics I'm going to hit at the start as I usually do. And then we'll get into the questions. Remember, super chats are enabled if you want your question to get full priority status. And make sure to like this video. If you're in the chat right now, X out of it, go like it. And then if you're watching this later, make sure to like it, make sure to leave a comment. Feel free to be active in the chat. I try to get as many questions as I can, but as people know, I do tend to be fairly detailed in my answers, so we don't always get to a lot of them. Also, let me know what you think. I've got like my shade here completely open, so we've got a bit more natural light coming in, and I just decided to do it. I didn't test it first. So there you go. This is live. We just do it. That's where the delivery was last week, where you saw me get up and our lactoferrin supplement was delivered. So, okay, Sam has the first question. What happens regarding bile when you overeat? I noticed I tend to get constipated when I overeat, and my Accutane-induced ED, which stands for erectile dysfunction, seems to worsen for a while. So first, let me be very clear to those of you who are parents and to those of you who want to become parents or may become parents in the future. If you give your child Accutane, teenager, whenever, you can ruin their sexual function for the rest of their life. Can we fix it? We are really hoping that it can be fixed in all cases, but there's going to likely be different approaches that work for different people. We have seen it happen, but I've also got, as I'm going to do a video on in the future, I have a gentleman who has been working with me for a while, and we have increased his testosterone from the 300s to the 900s, his total testosterone, and it did not fix his libido or his erectile dysfunction, which just goes to show that testosterone level is not the ultimate determinant of sexual function. But this is a younger man. I think he's either in his late 20s or early 30s, and to have a total testosterone of 300 something is abysmal. To get it to 900, when I saw his testosterone numbers, he was shocked. I was shocked. And then to hear that the function hadn't improved at all was just mind-boggling. So I have things in the works that I am looking into in terms of that. I've talked about folate before on previous live streams. I do think B1 plays a role. But what are those doing? Those are folate speeds. Folate is necessary to run aldehyde dehydrogenase, and thiamine binds to aldehydes, making them less toxic while you try to excrete them. So Sam's question, so the Accutane-induced ED, this is super common. As many of you know, I've gone over the research on this. If you haven't seen it, let me see. RX, let me find it. The Post-Retinoid Sexual Dysfunction Petition, PRSD, at rxrisk.com. You all should show that. You all should show this to anybody who's on it. You should show it to anybody who's thinking of taking it. You all should be posting this in the Accutane survivor groups, Accutane victim groups. The evidence on this is overwhelming. It damages sexual function. Now, is this due to calcification? Because toxicity does that? Is it due to aldehyde issues? Accutane slows down, retinoic acid slow down ALDH. So then you'd accumulate aldehydes. Do you know how? I don't know if you guys have been over this before, but let me find this. Male contraception aldehyde dehydrogenase. They are trying to create a pill for men to make you infertile. And what does it do? It slows down aldehyde dehydrogenase. You can look this up. I'm just going to put the search here that I did, male contraception aldehyde dehydrogenase. So what they're doing, so what does retinoic acid do? I've put up the research on this before. Retinoic acid directly slows down your aldehyde dehydrogenase. When you take retinoic acid, it slows down your aldehyde dehydrogenase. So you would make more aldehydes. And we see tons of fertility problems in post-Accutane users and vitamin A toxicity people because they, at one point, they definitely had too much retinoic acid. It slowed down their ALDH. Is this somewhat permanent? Well, until you detox it, it seems to be. And can there be lasting effects of it? Probably. Your body makes new homeostasis points as things get messed up. This is why a lot of people who gain a lot of weight, they get really toxic. Their bodies set their new homeostasis point and they're toxic and they can't lose weight because their body won't dump the toxins and try to hurt you. So anyway, put it together that when you slow down aldehyde dehydrogenase, whether it's with Accutane, you see lots of infertility problems. Vitamin A toxicity makes retinoic acid, slows down ALDH, creates lots of fertility problems. And then now they're working on pills for men to make you infertile, that specifically slow down your ALDH. So let's just put all those together, okay? I have seen a pattern. I don't have all the research put together on this because it's taking a bunch of things from a bunch of places. You guys know I can do that, and I can keep it all up here. I can't always go back and find the studies on call like this, but slowing down ALDH seems to slow down and mess up bile production. This is just a pattern I've put together. So overeating. Overeating. Here's one of the things about overeating and erectile dysfunction. Erectile dysfunction is blood flow. It's a blood flow issue. That's how the male organ works. You need lots of blood going there to make it work. When you eat, you send all of that blood flow to your intestines to help with absorption and digestion because it's, you want to rest and digest. So that's where the blood is going. So just in terms of blood flow, you're sending the blood flow to your guts. And if you want, and it's going to be there for a while. So if you want to have good function down there, don't send all the blood to your guts. You need to not overeat so that it can go where you want it to go. Okay, that's just a blood flow function. Now, here's the thing that confuses a lot of people about constipation and diarrhea and just getting pooping better. When you overeat, you're likely eating generally more fat. I mean, that's part of, even if you were eating the same percentage of fat in different meals, if you overeat, you're going to be eating a larger amount of total fat, of absolute fat grams. This will cause more bile dumping. However, you must always remember that this bile is very toxic, especially post-Accutane. The bile is extremely toxic, and the bile damages everything it touches. And the bile damaging everything it touches is how it creates leaks in the system. The leaks in the system leak toxic bile and retinoic acid and all the nasty stuff that your liver stores into your bloodstream. If you are leaking more, think of it as like a flood coming down, or a flood that you had flood protection, barriers in place and all that stuff, but the flood overwhelms it. And then the flood is going everywhere where it wasn't supposed to go. Let's say you eat a normal meal and your flood protection holds. So you don't put more bile in your blood. because you're not breaking down the flood barriers that you have in place, however good they are. If you're getting constipated regularly, your flood barriers are kind of broken and the bile's going back into your blood. How do we know about pooping and bile? For those of you who haven't heard me talk about this, constipation, so bile determines your pooping frequency, the amount of bile in your intestines. The amount of bile in your intestines, when it's really low, you get constipated. You need the bile to trigger your pooping mechanism. If the bile is good, then you poop a normal amount. If you have an excess of bile in your intestines, you get loose bowels. Okay? Now, I can tell you that I was messing around with some supplements on my own because I am an experimenter. I am the leader out here, so I'm doing experiments, and I tested something yesterday, and boy, did I have a big bile dump last night. And how do I know that I had a big bile dump last night? Because, I mean, it's only 10 in the morning, folks, and I don't care if this is too much information for you because we're all adults talking about health here. I have pooped 3 times already this morning. And my lower back was stiff when I woke up, which means I know the bile was going to my kidneys. And I got body odor this morning. So where is that bile coming out of me? We have evidence the bile is coming out of my armpits. I got BO. The bile is going to my kidneys. I get the stiff lower back. It's like a referred pain from my kidneys. And this is just classic for my symptoms. And how do I know I have more bile in my intestines? I pooped 3 times already today. Okay. So is the bile, some of it going back into my blood? Yes. Some of it's going to my kidneys. Some of it's going past my kidneys, coming out my skin. That's how I know it was big. And then how I know I just make a lot of bile, and a lot of it went to my intestines, and it triggered more bowel movements. So if you are constipated normally and the constipation gets worse and you're feeling worse, here's what it means. It means the bile is going back into your blood. It's not going into your intestines, or you'd be pooping better. So the thing I can tell you, Sam, is if overeating causes your erectile dysfunction to get worse and you get more constipated, you are really not doing yourself any favors by overeating. You know, we have the old doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. If you're like, I get worse when I overeat, then it would be, we generally know overeating is bad. Your digestive system just doesn't like it. And your symptoms get worse. So we don't want to do that. The mechanisms, I mean, we can go into the mechanisms of the bile as I just did, and the blood flow. And even if we never knew any of this, we can go by the doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, then don't do that. Okay? You guys need to be out there. I don't care what you read on the internet about most people have this reaction. I don't care. If you have a problem with something and it makes you feel worse, don't do it. It's not going to go away as you keep doing it. That's not how supplements and foods that you don't feel good work. Now, there's 2 exceptions to this. One is with soluble fiber. There is some people can, let's say they try eating beans. One way of introducing beans, if you haven't heard me say this before, I got this from another naturopathic doctor on the internet. He said, start with 2 tablespoons a day for 2 weeks. 2 tablespoons of beans a day for 2 weeks. Don't just start with big ass bowls of them, because this is dose dependent. So you give your gut biome, whenever you mess with your gut biome, that is the only time where you can give it 2 weeks to adjust. Where you might feel a little more bloated at the start, you might be a little burpy, you might be a little farty. But if you notice improvements at the same time, then I'm okay with people pushing forward for 2 weeks. So if you start adding soluble fiber feeds gut bacteria, and it's going to change your gut biome. If you're taking probiotics, obviously you're changing your gut biome. Now, there's people I've read on the internet saying, I took this probiotic and it gave me SIBO. You want to know what that person did wrong? They didn't pay attention to how shitty they felt and stopped taking it. Don't do that to yourself. We are trying to be smarter here. If you are taking some, I mean, do you think at that the point the person didn't get SIBO from one pill of it? They got SIBO from probably multiple bottles of it, not listening to their body's feedback and just going, well, they say it's going to get better. It's not. If probiotics or soluble fiber or things that affect your gut biome are going to be positive, they will show over the first 2 weeks. Like let's say you start taking something. Let's say you get some bloating and some burping or farting or gassy or whatever. Over the 2 weeks, this should go down and go away, while whatever benefits you notice at the start should improve. That's the only time you can take stuff past, where if you take it for 2 weeks and you don't feel good, stop taking it. Okay? But generally, if you start taking any other type of supplement and you feel worse within the first week, significantly worse, you notice sleep problems or anxiety or irritability or whatever, bowel problems, stop doing it to yourself. Okay? You're not doing yourself any favors. Quick story. I had a woman who worked with the biggest nutritional balancing guy in the field for 3 years. She was getting so much sicker and getting so like her mind was not right. She almost got a divorce out of it. She never felt better in the 3 years. Never felt better. You know what her practitioners kept telling her? You're just detoxing. You're just retracing. You're just retracing. You're just detoxing. Do more of the stuff that makes you feel bad. That's what they told her. They basically said, they're like, eat more vegetables, eat more liver, take more supplements. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Well, don't do that. At 3 years, she was feeling kind of dumb after 3 years and going, why did I keep doing this to myself? I almost lost my marriage. I just kept getting worse. And then I take her off of some of this stuff and she starts to feel better almost immediately. Listen to your body, folks, not the internet. If I'm sitting here, even me, if I say something that you could try here, and when I say second, okay. Yeah, my screen froze up for a second there. If I say you could try something on this live stream, let's say I'm talking about something and you decide you want to try it. I didn't tell you to try it. You wanted to try it. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor unless you are working with me. But if you decide to try something you hear on this and you go, oh, I didn't feel good when I took that. You know what my advice would be? It would be the same as anything else. Stop taking it. Reassess. Maybe retry it to confirm it, just to see if it happens again. Because could it have been, I don't know, you tried a new supplement on the day you got fired from your job and you felt stressed from getting fired from your job and you can't sleep and you have diarrhea and you have all sorts of stress problems. Well, maybe it wasn't the supplement. Maybe it was you getting fired, right? So maybe you got to try it again. Okay, we got to be smart. Are there other factors? Yes. Could you have worked out just too dang hard that day? Yeah. So, but that's the Accutane stuff, Sam. Let me close this one, close that one, get these posts. So here was an interesting thing. I just want to go over this real quick that I just found. I don't know why this popped into my head the other day, but I was thinking, so this is where I go through so much stuff that I was like, didn't I see somewhere that other cells other than the liver can make bile acids? I was like, don't I remember seeing that somewhere? So I went searching. I just did a quick search. I searched for endogenous extrahepatic, which means outside of the liver, bile acid synthesis. Sometimes, you got to know what to search for to find this stuff. Like when you search for things that are stored in the liver on PubMed, you'd look for the word accumulate. You don't look for store. So there was this paper. Let me plug it in here. This will be real quick. I'll get to that super chat. I saw the super chat, so I will get to that. Bile acid synthesis from nature to the chemical modification and synthesis and their applications as drugs and nutrients. Folks, do we not understand that if the pharma cartel is giving us something as a drug, it's most likely bad? The chemical modification of it. Ooh, you mean like how pharma cartel companies tweak compounds found in nature to patent them to turn them into drugs? And then usually when they tweak them, they create more side effects than the natural form of them is, because those are different molecules. This is different than vitamin A. If you have a synthetic retinol and a natural retinol, they are exactly the same toxicity. I've shown this multiple times. But if you're tweaking a molecule and making it different, that is a different molecule. This should make sense. So, again, bile acid synthesis from nature to the chemical modification and synthesis and their applications as drugs and nutrients. They aren't nutrients. They aren't nutrients. Well, let me go in here and find the classic, as they have a section here, the classic pathway of biosynthesis of bile acids. This is the liver making them, okay? But then we get into the next part, which is the alternative pathway of biosynthesis of bile acids. Here I'm going to quote from it. An alternative pathway, also known as the acidic pathway, due to the synthesis of acidic intermediates, involves the conversion of C27 bile acids as well as oxysterols formed in different cell types, which are then transported to the liver and metabolized to bile acids. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead here. Alternatively, less than 10% of the total amount of bile acids is synthesized. The alternative pathway is thought to be significantly more active in childhood, while later on in the course of life, the classical pathway becomes significant in the contribution to the composition of the bile acid pool, the recipe of the bile acids. Okay? 10% of your bile acids are made outside of your liver. When I'm talking about bile is bile is your liver's poop, it's your cell's poop. Bile is waste. Does it have some functions? Like, can we use waste? Sure, they can process sewage enough that they can fertilize crops with it. How great that is with how much toxic crap we have in the wastewater. I don't know. Probably not great. And they're probably not getting rid of the things they really need to get rid of. But that's the idea, right? You can take poop and make manure out of it, right? So we can have two purposes. Bile acids can have more than one purpose, but they are by nature toxic. And the fact that the other cells in your body are making it, that then goes to the liver, shows it's toxic. And the fact that they're making drugs out of it shows that it's toxic. The fact that when you have a lot of it in your intestines, it makes you get diarrhea shows it's toxic. Okay? But if you have no bile, so like Sam, when you're asking about overeating gives you constipation because the bile is going back into your blood, the thing that creates SIBO, I have a study, they created SIBO in dogs, small intestine bowel overgrowth. They created SIBO in dogs by blocking their bile ducts. So if the bile doesn't go into your intestines, your small intestines specifically, bad bacteria overgrows the good bacteria there. Because the bile is toxic enough and it's supposed to keep the bad bacteria down. So if it doesn't show up, the bad bacteria grow. So that's like a positive function of it. But still, it's doing its work by being toxic to those bacteria. So let me go find that super chat. Gabriel asks, have you seen any trends in people with 2+ years of detox who have reached an extremely low serum value? Are they over any humps or is it too specific to tell? Well, as some people have been requesting in the Love Your Liver program, the vitamin A problem, yes, we do have people, 2 years, maybe. More people get low around the 3 or 4 year mark. We've had multiple people now get down to 7s and below 20s, in the teens. Yeah, so we see that. Now, the thing is that's only serum retinol. Serum retinol is all we really have. Now, if I ever have my own lab, I'm going to, there's a lab out there. I can't even remember their name because I won't use them, because getting your blood drawn and sent to them is such a gigantic pain in the butt, because I've had people in 29 countries around the world as clients. I can't figure out how to help them get blood draws. I can't even help Canadians get blood draws. They live in China. They won't let them do anything in Canada. And they're just over the border. Like Grant Genereux can't even get a blood vitamin A test anymore in Canada. His doctors won't do it. And he lives far enough from the border that he's not driving over into the US to go to a lab course so I can help him out. Because, well, China and their shot policies on going over the border. I feel really bad for you Canadians. But part of it's in the nature of the setup of that country. So we have serum retinol. That's it. They don't measure serum. I mean, if I ever get a lab, now let's say if you're out there watching this, and let's say you're some really rich angel investor and you want to figure out how to help me do this, you feel free to contact my office. Contact Julie at admin@nutritiondetective.com. If you want to do that, great. But what would I be measuring? I would be figuring out how to measure. I would measure serum retinol. I would measure serum retinol esters. I would measure serum retinaldehyde. I would measure serum retinoic acid. I would measure serum beta carotene. I would measure all of those. And then we would have a picture of where the vitamin A could be hiding in the blood, what form. This is like, okay. Y'all ever notice how, like, let's say as an example, people were talking about tallow. And people on the internet who push tallow love to brag that it's high in vitamin A. But then she said, when I search for tallow on the internet, it says there's no vitamin A in it. Well, let me tell you, what are they measuring in tallow? What do they measure in foods to tell you the vitamin A content? They measure the retinol. Okay. Or they measure the beta carotene, the provitamin A things that can turn into retinol. And then okay. One beta carotene is cleaved inside your body into 2 retinaldehydes, 2 molecules of retinol. But but this doesn't happen right away. So like, let's say you decided to poison yourself with carrot juice to the point where you turn orange or yellow, and you have so much beta carotene stored in your skin and your subcutaneous fat that it's not being broken down into retinaldehydes or retinols, which it can then turn into. It's just stuck in your fat. And so this is what modern medical science has said, nutritional science has said, well, we only give the beta carotene like, I don't know, 30% or 60% of an actual of you actually eating retinol, because that's all it raises the blood. Well, geniuses, we know that 1 beta carotene turns into 2 of them. It just doesn't do it right away because the body doesn't want to overwhelm itself and poison itself. So it goes and it stores it. This doesn't seem that hard. So what I've seen is that, like, let's say somebody's serum retinol, when people have orange or yellow skin, when they come to me like that toxic in vitamin A, I can tell you that their serum retinol, what I have seen is it will stay exactly the same until their skin is not yellow or orange. And then it'll start going down. So back to tallow. Here's an important thing to know. So I'm going to go over a couple things. One, you ever notice how with butter, when you first get the butter and it's cold, it's like a lighter yellow. But if you melt the butter, or if you turn it into ghee, it gets even more yellow. Okay? You guys should have seen this color change. Next, casein, however you want to say it. The milk protein that is what curdles. Like if you eat cottage cheese, you're just eating casein. Okay? You ever notice, well, you guys wouldn't know this, but when they have the casein, the normal casein, like if you ever do protein powders and you get casein, it's white. Okay. Now, did you know that the casein that they use for animal studies that they say is vitamin A free? They say it's vitamin A free. They treat it with alcohol and they also heat it. Now, the casein, I've seen pictures and you can go look these up, folks. The vitamin A or the vitamin free casein that they use in animal studies is not white. It is yellowish. Interesting. Okay. Tallow. Tallow usually starts pretty white, right? Now, I don't have a lot of tallow around, but I'm going to guess that by the time the tallow's made, it's going to have a more off-white or a more yellowish color. That would be my guess. I don't care about tallow. I'm not going to eat it. No way. So, what we're seeing is a pattern of things that we know have vitamin A in them turning more yellow as they are heated. Heat oxidizes things. The vitamin A detox pathways process is an oxidative pathway. These things are being oxidized. So if you had, let's say in raw beef fat, they would measure it, and let's say there is some retinol in there. Okay. You heat it long enough. They measure it again, and there's no retinol in there, but it's more yellow than before. Casein, it was white. You heat it. They now say there's no retinol in it. It's vitamin free. It's vitamin A free, but it's more yellow. Butter, which has retinol in it, you heat it and it turns more yellow. Did the vitamin A leave? Or did it just change form to something that they don't measure? It was just oxidized. It's a different form. It's actually a worse form. It's probably either retinaldehyde or retinoic acid now. Okay. Funny story. I had a guy, I went to the Tucson Arm Wrestling Club, the Gorilla Arms, my third practice yesterday. And a guy there, the most serious guy in the group, probably one of the better arm wrestlers in the entire group. He's talking to me and he's latching onto it because he's inflamed. He wants to be better. And he's talking to me about these big bags of popcorn he used to buy. The movie popcorn, especially, they added beta carotene to it to make it more yellow. And he was like, I used to eat bags of this stuff. I was like, well, you better stop doing that. So, yeah, don't just things that are yellow, generally stay away from them. But could tallow still be high in vitamin A or higher in retinoic acid than it was originally before you cooked it? Yeah. So then they measure it. They say there's no retinol in it. Well, you have people on the internet saying this has a lot of vitamin A in it. And then you have people saying, but it doesn't show up. And I'm saying both are true. One of the things that you will help yourself with, folks, is by not overeating fat, which is like a big thing right now for a lot of people, just stuffing your face with fat. Where do animal bodies store their fat-soluble toxins? Fat-soluble toxins. Where do humans store their fat-soluble toxins? They store it in the fat. Weird now that we know cells in the body can actually make bile acids. Weird. Why would they be doing that? Because they're each kind of their own teeny tiny little liver. Okay? They're trying to get rid of the poisons too. So, Gabriel, your question of are they over any humps or is it too specific to tell? Well, we could say at that point, we could theorize. Well, let me back up a little bit. Sometimes the people who come to me, they're very sick, and they can sometimes have vitamin A levels that are down in the teens or even lower. And they have not been on a low vitamin A diet. In fact, they've been on the opposite. So they could have really low serum retinol, and they are sick as dogs. And then we start doing the stuff with them. Why are they not showing up vitamin A? Well, how does your body get rid of vitamin A? It puts it into the bile. What if they're not? This is one of the things that I'm working on. What if their body's just not getting rid of vitamin A into the bile? Just like, what if you made a recipe and you didn't put one of the ingredients in? You know, why could the body not? Why can't the body do this? So as we start getting them better, and it's been, I go over this in the vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist thread on Twitter. Let me find that. So let me go over this. So vitamin A deficiency doesn't exist thread. I cover how when people have zinc deficiency, as an example, they will have lower serum retinol levels. And I also cover how when they give them zinc and they fix their zinc levels, their serum retinol goes up, but they didn't give them vitamin A. So where did the vitamin A come from? Were they actually vitamin A deficient? Or was the vitamin A not coming out of their liver? You see? So then we get into protein deficiency. I go over this in the same thread. When people, like especially like let's say third world malnourished kids, are not getting enough protein, particularly meat, they have low serum retinol, and they say you're vitamin A deficient. And then when they start feeding them protein, which I have studies showing this, their serum retinol goes up. And that doesn't mean they're eating a bunch of vitamin A. So with zinc deficiency or with protein deficiency, people could have very, very low vitamin A in their blood, serum retinol. But does that mean they're deficient? Obviously not. It's just not coming out of their liver. So somebody could, I mean, I'm going to tell you, like, just making a blanket statement of if somebody was doing things correctly and they get to low vitamin A, low serum retinol, and they're feeling a lot better, they've probably emptied out a lot of their liver from its vitamin A content. Could they still have other problems? Sure. Could still have too much iron around. They could still have too much copper around. They could be poisoning themselves with stuff that we aren't specifically looking at. There could be, I mean, I keep hearing from people with mold. Folks, if you have a mold problem in your house and you're trying to detox from mold, stop and use your money to fix the mold problem or to move. Don't try to detox while you're still intoxing. Pierre, write that one down. Write that down as one of the other things. Oh, and poison begets poison. We need to write that one down too. And the poison always wins. Those three. Poison always wins. Poison begets poison. And the one I just said, which I'm not even remembering because I'm going live and just trying to keep my brain going. So could they be over the vitamin A hump? Yes. I have had requests lately to write more on copper toxicity and fixing that, because when I started out, it was a lot of vitamin A toxicity, but it seems that the copper toxicity is even more long lasting because it's even harder to avoid it in foods. And then if people aren't, let's say, working with me or Nathan to figure out their zinc and selenium and molybdenum doses, all of which are copper antagonists, they may not be getting enough nutrients to kick that stuff out. So copper seems to be, and then there's these, oh my gosh, these revolution groups and the bioavailable groups, all these copper crazy groups. I mean, they're as bad as the iodine crazy people. I'm not saying iodine isn't necessary, but if you're out there taking high doses of potassium iodide, you're just frying your thyroid. If you're out there taking high doses of copper, you're setting yourself up for years of suffering. If you're doing the bioavailable copper and cod liver oil, years of suffering to fix this. I'm sorry, you've been misled. But they're happy to make money off of you. And then they'll tell you when you get sick, oh, just do more of what you were already doing that made you sick. Watch them. Like I told you about the blood draws, where people do blood draws and they feel terrible and they keep telling them to go do more blood draws. And they feel worse. And do another blood draw. They feel worse. They feel even worse. This is why I cannot tell you folks how important the silliest principle that we go by, which is, doc, it hurts when I do this, then don't do that, is. Then there's the, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough. That's a big one. Everybody comes into my program and they kind of take me seriously, but they don't when I tell them, if you do too much of this too quick, you're going to feel like crap. And I don't know what that number is, but it's better to start slow and find out than to jump in the deep end and find out the hard way. And nobody believes me until they do it. And then they're like, ooh, yeah. I have some people who don't come to me and tell me that they messed up. They overdo it for 6 months straight. And they're like, why am I not feeling better? And they come and talk to me finally. And I'm like, stop it. Stop what you're doing. That's why you don't feel good. Do you remember in that article where I wrote this and I said, if you don't feel good from this, back the heck off? And they're like, yeah. There you go. So, yeah, Kurtu is an Accutane survivor, and she just made a comment here. I got over the worst vitamin A hump in maybe 2 years, but after that, she started detoxing copper. The copper thing is, it's a big problem. And I think it seems to be more pervasive, because I don't think you need the vitamin A in your liver and in your tissues. You store it in fat as retinol esters. You don't store water-soluble vitamin A as far as I know. But copper you can store practically anywhere, including your brain. So thank you very much for that that super chat, Gabriel. I hope that helps. Yeah. So can you be over the hump? We would. Here's the only thing I look at for serum retinol. This is very, very important. Let me remind you on my labs. I did my labs, and for 3.5 years, I believe it took 3.5 years for what I'm theorizing. I had a 2.5 years. I had a 50.2 or something at a 2.5 year mark of detox, and at the 3-year mark, I was like 51.8 or a 52 point something. So that was what I call the plateau. So I was probably at those low 50s. I was probably plateauing in those low 50s for the whole 3 years prior. And I got rid of all my major health issues in that time, but my vitamin A had not dropped. My serum retinol had not dropped. And then finally, at the 3.5 year mark, I was down to, what was it? For those of you who remember it, 28, something. I finally started dropping, and that's the cliff that you can come to. But my hump, in terms of my health issues getting better, had already happened. So that's why I don't care what the serum retinol is. We monitor it. We watch it because it's cool to see it go down. You know, if you're going to do all this hard work, at least you get to see it, right, at some point. But I tell people it may not start dropping for 3 years. And what do we look at more? Like, as opposed to the practitioners who, let's say, the nutritional balancing people who had this woman feeling worse and worse and worse and worse for 3 years. If somebody felt worse and worse and worse for 3 years, and I was working with them and they weren't telling me that, I'd be very disappointed in the person, because I'd say something we're doing is not right. I would take somebody who, let's say they came to me and they're like, everything I try, I just keep getting worse. I would say, stop everything. Stop. I might even take them down to an all muscle meat diet with a little bit of fiber in it that they tolerate it, just to clear the system. The problem is sometimes we get people who keep saying they're getting worse and they keep trying things, and that we get many of us out there are supplement addicts, supplement junkies. People, I've been there. It's hard to not slip back into it. You just think if I just take the next thing, it'll just fix everything. No, that's a pharmaceutical thought process. Like if you take something and you get a side effect from it, then you just take the next thing and then you get another side effect and then you take the next thing and you get another side effect. This is what a lot of people do with B vitamins. Oh, take B1 and then, oh, that gives you this side effect. Oh, take B2. Oh, that gives you this side effect. Take B6. Then you get that side effect. Oh, take B12. Like this is what a lot of people do with B vitamins. The B complex is nonsense. Find me 2 foods with exactly the same profiles of B vitamins in them. Because if it's a B complex, right, it should be a stable ratio in all foods. Shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be consistent? Why are they going to sell you a B complex pill, a B50, that has this magical 50 micrograms, 50 milligrams, whatever ratio in it, and you can't reproduce that ratio in even 2 foods? Some foods don't have any of a certain B vitamin in them, but the B complex. Okay? So I am working more on the B vitamins, and I think I'm, as you guys know I tend to do, I'm narrowing it down to what is really going to be the important things to try. And I am in the process. I am feeling very comfortable with reworking and reordering and reprioritizing the Love Your Liver program. So for those of you who are in it, there's not going to be like massive changes, but I'm going to be reorganizing it so it will be easier to move through it step by step, so people don't have to read the whole damn thing before they start, because it's big. And if you guys don't know that yet, it's a task. It's my life's work. So, but yeah, Gabriel, could it be a hump? Like if somebody saw that their vitamin A all of a sudden dropped from in the 6-month time when we do the testing, if they saw that their vitamin A dropped and all coincidentally during that same time, a lot of their health issues went away, yeah, then we know that they got over it. If the symptoms aren't going away, even though the vitamin A is dropping, first we want to look at, might there be a zinc deficiency? Might there be a protein deficiency? We fix those to make sure that the vitamin A is still able to come out of the liver. But yeah, so it's all, everything requires context. This is why I don't like people on the internet who make wide sweeping statements about things. This causes this. Like everybody got sucked into the candida causes everything, didn't they? Everybody's got caught into that at some point in their life. Candida doesn't cause everything. Candida is a symptom. Okay? So you fix the environment of the gut, the candida goes away on its own. You don't have to throw, pharmaceutical or natural bombs down there trying to kill it. So, Christine, I see there it is. I see your super chat. Thank you. Let me get that question. I'm assuming it's this one. What about the health ranger, Mike Adams? He has a lab. He's in Texas, I believe. How do I put it? I think if Mike Adams posed a threat to the mainstream with what he's doing, he wouldn't still be around. Simple as that. Here's the thing to be clear, folks. When you see anyone going against the mainstream, who's big time, as one person put it, over 50,000 subscribers was their number that they picked. Sure, it's arbitrary, but it makes sense. Anybody who is really big and they act like they get canceled, or they act like they're doing something so damaging to the mainstream, they're doing what they're allowed to do, or they're being pushed to do. If the mainstream wants to cancel somebody, here's how you're going to know if somebody gets canceled truly. The credit card companies stop taking money for them. That is how you will know that they are truly canceled. If they're still allowed to take credit cards, they have not been canceled. They have simply been made an example of to try to dissuade others from going down the same path. Anyone big is basically controlled. And I am not interested in collaborating with anyone who I have any suspicion of. And anyone big, I would have great suspicion of. I'll put it that way. I have suspicion of everything. Everything is, if you're here, if you've been around watching me for a while, trust a couple of things. Trust no one, which sounds kind of cynical, and I don't like that idea, but trust but verify. So I have to do things in my own way. If it means I have to do things with my own money, that's great, but I am definitely not collaborating with anybody who I think might get in the way. Let me tell you a quick story. Somebody was trying to set up they wanted to measure the retinoic acid in the vitamin-free casein. That was their goal because they believe that there's retinoic acid in the vitamin A-free casein. That's why it's yellowish. So they contacted a reference lab that analyzes things like this, like maybe what Mike Adams has down in Texas, but it wasn't his lab. So they contacted this lab, and the guy was kind of excited. The guy who worked there, the guy who owned it, sounded kind of excited to do this project. The person who was looking into this paid the lab $1,500. The lab said that the guy was ready to get on it, supposedly. The guy said, well, I have to contact the main reference place so he can get whatever the numbers are or whatever the sample is so that he could set his machines to analyze for retinoic acid. Okay. So the lab guy had to contact another place to get this retinoic acid sample. Guy was all gung-ho. Lab guy was all gung-ho to do it. Then all of a sudden, the person who had asked for this, had requested this, and paid money, doesn't hear back from the guy for a while, weeks to several months. I talked to him and I said, you should contact them, find out what's going on. They get contacted. Guy who owns the lab said, oh, we got some big project. And now we just have to put it off for a while. We had to put it to the back burner. The lab never did the analysis for retinoic acid in the vitamin-free casein. I don't know if they kept the money or not. But it's really weird that somebody's trying to uncover the fact that there might be retinoic acid in the vitamin-free casein that is used in the studies to justify a vitamin A deficient diet. It was never vitamin A deficient. It's retinoic acid poisoned. This is what we're up against, folks. Somebody makes a simple request for retinoic acid analysis, and then all of a sudden, everything in the works gets gummed up. So, yeah, as Hope's saying, it's big indeed. Yes. So, Chris, the people who I would tend to trust. I mean, I've even had people who were in the Love Your Liver program who have now been dishonorably discharged, who I have great suspicions about their original motivations and their original allegiances. And David Hagerson is great in the group at looking into the backgrounds of people's names and the backgrounds of certain bloodlines and all that stuff. So he's super helpful. I really love having David around. So that's all the super chats for now. So thank you for all those. And then, sorry, I'm just going to address this real quick. Gabriel made another comment. Gabriel says, as far as copper is concerned, DMPS has a much higher affinity for copper than zinc. EDTA loves zinc. Was it EDTA that dropped your mother's zinc, Dr. Smith? Yes, it was. Calcium EDTA. So it was. Chelators deplete all sorts of things. Weird that they'd be pharmaceutical chelators, right? Given IV. And sure, can they help in if I knew I had lead poisoning, like quick story. Guy I met at the naturopathic convention one year, the National Naturopathic Convention, which I would probably never go back to ever. Waste of my time. He was talking in a little group, and he was saying he had an MD buddy. The MD buddy comes to him and he says, "Bro, I think I'm going insane." He's like, "I think I'm losing my mind." And the naturopathic doctor looked at him and he goes, "Do you want to know why this is happening? Do you want to know what's going on?" He's like, "You eat sushi like 5 days a week. You're mercury poisoned. You have Mad Hatter syndrome. You are going crazy from the mercury." He said, "Go get a blood mercury run and see if that's what's going on." He did. Guy had mercury poisoning in his blood from all the sushi he was eating. They went and did a chelator. I don't remember if it was EDTA or DMPS, and they started to pull him out of it. And he stopped eating sushi, obviously. Or at least he did for a while. Who knows what he went back to. But toxicity is what causes these problems. If you haven't seen the paper on schizophrenia, let's do 3 evidence retinoids, schizophrenia. Three independent lines of evidence suggest retinoids, vitamin A compounds, as the cause of schizophrenia. Now, if you were to go and look up the work of Dr. William Walsh, you would also find that high copper, is very associated with schizophrenia. You want to know what I see together in people all the time? Vitamin A toxicity and copper toxicity. Weird that can they both be true? Sure. Could one cause the other? Sure. That's why they're like bosom buddies in the system. So let me just make sure no other super chats. Okay, so let me continue from the top. Sam asks, what do I think of macronutrient ratios? He says, I may have a problem of eating too much protein a day. I can easily eat 1 kilogram of meat a day plus a good amount of legumes. Macros, I'm not too, well, I'll put it to you this way. The only thing I look at every meal, right? Every meal I eat or snack, I want to try to get in some protein. A good amount of protein. I do better on more protein versus less, but I don't do well on all protein. I try to do like an all muscle meat carnivore thing with just like hamburger patties. And by the halfway through the 3rd day, I was like, I quit. I didn't feel good. I felt like I was sweating out beef fat. And I just felt disgusting. And these were grass-fed hamburger patties. And I was just like, I don't feel good doing this. So imagine this. Watch me follow my own advice. Doc, it hurts when I do that or do this. Then don't do that. So I was like, okay, I don't feel good doing this. I'm not going to do this. I tried it. Didn't feel good. So could there be a problem of eating too much protein a day? I mean, sure, you could cause anything can cause anything. Can you do too much of anything, even a good thing? Sure, yeah. Yeah. That's another one, Pierre. Anything can cause anything. Got to add that one too. I'm hopefully going to do these short principles as, things like YouTube shorts and TikToks and Instagram videos and stuff like that, because I got to start making some more shorter content. I know I'm trying here, folks. So a kilogram of meat a day, what is it? A kilogram, let me just do a little math here. A kilogram of meat is what? 2.2 pounds times 16 ounces, 35.2, and there's what? 7 grams of protein in an ounce, I believe. So that's 246 grams of protein a day. If I did that right, if somebody wants to do that calculation, let me know. But if you're just feeling like you're overeating, Sam, if you're underweight and you're eating so much to try to, let me just put it this way. For most people, if you're underweight and you can't gain weight, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know what you are, Sam. If you're underweight and you can't gain weight, even if you eat obscene amounts of food and calories, the problem is in your liver. Overloading, as Sam just said, when he overeats, he gets more constipation, so more bile leakage and more symptoms. ED gets worse, and probably others, I would guess other symptoms get worse too. If you're causing yourself more symptoms, that means your liver is struggling underneath the load of overeating. So if you can maintain a weight without overeating and making yourself feel worse, then do this. Doc, it hurts when I do this. Then don't do that. Right? This comes up every time. And the definition of insanity. If you repeat doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, that is the definition of insanity. But we do have, if you want to change something, you have to change something. That's the opposite of the definition of insanity, right? Definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting a different result. But there's also, if you want to change something, you have to change something. So it's a little different way of looking at it, but it's the same end point. So could you get too much protein? I mean, the all muscle meat carnivores, I mean, the thing about muscle meat, not organ meats. Muscle meats are going to, if somebody eats an all muscle meat diet, a relatively lower fat one. Notice I said relatively, I didn't say fat free. We have seen some people who are doing a lot of chicken breast get into a little trouble with a lack of fat. Okay. But this person was working with me. Well, you may want to go see her testimonial on the YouTube page here. It's Wardy's testimonial. It's the most recent testimonial. But she was working with me, and she was doing a lot of chicken breast because that was what she was tolerating. And she was getting a little bit of dry skin and stuff like that. And so we added some fat in. Amazing. And it helped. Because she was talking to me almost weekly in the office hours, which she gets as part of her package. If you didn't know that, people who do the testing and consultation packages with me get the opportunity to talk with me twice a week, every week. Except this week I'm going to be on vacation. But I think this is the first time I've canceled both office hours in a year. I mean, you guys see, this is the 95th live stream in a row. I don't miss stuff. I might reschedule it, but I don't miss it. So anyway, I'll be out of town this week. I didn't have time to fit those in. So I'm sorry, everybody. But Sam, if you're overeating, you may have a problem of just putting too much food in. So yeah, there might be a macronutrients. I'm generally, what I tell people is minimize or don't add sugars, minimize or don't add added fats if you're eating foods with fats in them. Make sure you get enough protein, absolute minimum. So don't misinterpret this. Absolute minimum of protein is 50 grams a day. Absolute minimum. Is more better? Yeah. When we're talking about 50 grams, I'm not a fan of the WHO. Not a fan of them. But when they're talking about people in third world countries, like to avoid protein malnutrition, and they say they need at least 50 grams of protein total from all sources. So that includes plant sources. That's what I decided to make my minimum. When we're talking about third world, and ladies out there, you might be amazed that some of you are not even getting 50 grams of protein a day. Some of you are, and that's great. But if you've never counted up your protein grams before, do it. Make sure you're at least over 50. Okay. Would 100 probably be better? Or at least, I'll put it this way. What would a good minimum to shoot for be? So we have the absolute minimum, 50. What would a better minimum be? Well, at least get, half of your body weight in pounds in grams of protein. So if you only weighed 100 pounds, then you're shooting for 50. That's 50. If you're 200 pounds, you're shooting for 100. That's the better minimum, if you want to call it that. And can you go above that? Sure. If you're doing like 300 grams of protein a day, Sam, then you got plenty. And might you need to tone it down? Well, if you're feeling like it's making your symptoms worse and you're not crapping, then yeah, you might want to get something else in there. So macros are, we don't shoot for a lot. We're not shooting for what we call really low fat, but we're not shooting for no fat. We're not technically shooting for low fat. If there's fat in the foods you're eating, okay. Like, don't try to eat super fatty foods, but don't worry about the fat in foods. Don't worry about the carbs in foods if they're whole foods. Don't add sugars. Okay. And then get plenty of protein. There's your macro lesson of the day. If you're a person who wants to obsess over macros, like I did the zone diet way back, like early 2000s. I did the zone diet. That was insanity. I've done the macro stuff. It's too much for me. My brain is doing so much other stuff during the day. I don't have time. I don't have the memory, the RAM for that. It doesn't make my life fun, so I don't do it. I emphasize protein at every meal. And then for me, I eat my low vitamin A vegetables. I eat some bananas, and I do protein, and I do my fiber drink, which I showed you guys on live on the air, a couple live streams ago. So that's how I do it, because that's what works the best for me. We have some people doing an all muscle meat carnivore diet with some psyllium. We have some people doing they're doing the cowboy diet like you are, Sam. They're doing beef and beans. There's people doing the Grand Genereux diet. There's people doing beef and rice, which is not my favorite, because you guys have heard me talk about arsenic before. Arsenic is a very real issue in rice. It is. I see it on hair tests all the time. So that's the protein thing. Okay. I'm going to hit this question real quick. Sam asks, is it possible to recover from the recent virus shot? The side effects from that? No one really knows. If what they say is true. Now, I don't believe medical science anymore at all. I don't believe it at all. Where they're saying, "Oh, we're going to go in and change your DNA." They can't even get viruses right. They think that viruses do all sorts of things, and they're just damaged proteins that show up when toxicity is around. That's it. If they even exist. They sure don't show a lot of pictures of them, or they make little cartoons of them, like the ball with the little red things all over it, to look real scary. But it's a protein strand. It's not a ball. If it even exists. And they have to do all sorts of things in the chemical analysis of it, which could change the whole structure of it by the time they find it. And your body then binds antibodies, proteins to it, to probably mark it for removal. Oh, it's a marker of toxicity? Wow, that makes sense. Anyway, if these shots actually changed the genetic sequences, the genetic structures, can you undo that? I don't know how. I mean, in theory, the only thing that could do it is the body. You could say God if you want, because they're kind of one and the same. So the only hope would be that the body can repair the damage. It will not be a magical supplement that does it. But DNA repair or DNA damage will come from, here's the thing you guys got to realize, that this has been a long time plan. We humans and animals, we can hand down toxicity to the next generation. How do you think all these kids are being born with jaundice? Tons of children today are being born with jaundice, and it's more every day. They're born toxic with liver damage. Mostly, I mean, and what the father is mostly contributing, because, right, the father, in terms of the contribution to a new life that the father makes, the father can't contribute that much toxicity, right? Because it's only one sperm. You can't carry that much toxicity in one sperm. But what can the sperm carry? The sperm can carry genetic damage that can then be passed down. So we have the mothers who are toxic, and the child is gestating in this toxic soup called the mother's blood. And why did the body make a placenta? The placenta is an extra liver for all the toxicity. Ladies, why do you feel like shit during pregnancy? Because you're toxic. Anytime you have a major hormonal stir up, ladies, whether it's your monthly cycle, whether it's getting your cycle the first time, whether it's menopause, whether it's having a baby, anytime your hormones are starting to go crazy, your toxicity is stirred up. That's why you feel bad. That's it. Women are better. Women store more toxins. That's one of the reasons women gain weight faster than men. Birth control pills worsen toxicity. What do birth control pills tend to cause to ladies? Weight gain. Shocking that these go together. So anyway, don't ever eat the placenta. Toss that. It's garbage. You don't want it. It's a third liver. So there's the mother's liver, there's the baby's liver, there's the placenta. The placenta is there, folks, to soak up the toxins. So hopefully the baby can be born with the lowest toxicity in its liver possible. That's the point of the placenta. It's a temporary liver. Throw it away. Okay. So, but can people recover from the only way I know of, here's what here, I'll pull this up again. Liver injury. Here's the link. I'm not going to read the title exactly. Liver injury following the C words mRNA vaccine administration. The Dillon experience, DILIN. This was presented at the AASLD. What is that? AASLD is I know it's liver something. Why do they not even put the name of their organization on their front page? Probably the American Association of, let me just see if I can find it. American Association for the Study of Liver Diseases. Well, at least they're studying them. At least they're studying them. Liver injury. What does liver injury cause? Liver injury is cholestasis, which is leaking of toxic bile into the system. What's the only group out there trying to fix toxic bile leaking into the system? That's us. So what do I think? I think anybody who wants to have the best chance of that should be doing our stuff. I'm a little biased, but it's also liver injury and toxic bile leaking into the blood can cause symptoms anywhere in the body. This is how we have all these diverse symptoms, whether they're cardiac or neurologic or cancer or all these other problems. How could something be connected to all of those problems? Toxic bile leaking into your blood. Actually, I remembered I had, let me just make sure. Okay, no more super chats. Gabriel, your super chat no, it didn't. Oh, Christine had another question. Okay, let me see. Wait, there it is. Okay, let me see that. So Christine, you're saying the question I wanted answered was about Dr. Buttar, Buttar, poisoning in November. Let me find it. Okay, wait. I see two. Emma said yes, like Dr. Buttar, and then Christine, you said Dr. Butt. So I'm not familiar. Like I live in my own little bubble. Okay. So I'm looking here. I'm just trying to research this real quick. If you have a link you want to post that you think would be good for me to read about this quickly, kind of a summary, that would be great. Dr. Rashid Buttar had stated publicly that he believed he had been poisoned with venom. He was in the ICU months ago and he reported that his blood work showed multiple venom sequences were present. He was put on a highly publicized list by the Center for Countering Digital Hate called the, quote, Disinformation Dozen. RFK Jr. is also on this list. You want to know who I don't trust? Is anyone in the Kennedy family. So I don't know. Mass envenomation carried out by the global government. Interesting. So here it says Dr. Edward Group also did testing, and Dr. Buttar shared about the shocking discoveries he also made. Quote, then I had another friend of mine, Dr. Group, had a test done for me and finds that I have a snake venom, I have a second snake venom, I have a third snake venom, I have an ant venom, and I have a spider venom. I had a rattlesnake venom and copperhead venom, and then later we found that I had cobra venom too. And I'm like, what the hell? How did I get this stuff? End quote. Oh, they have a docu-series on it. Expert recommended protocols that are reversing the symptoms of envenomation from COVID bioweapons. Now, one of my older live streams, I went over the whole venom thing. The it's in the water thing that people were saying. And I did cover how certain medications that are found in the waters are snake venom. They're derived. So remember, pharmaceutical takes chemicals that are found in nature and tweaks them so they can get a patent. Semaglutide, the big weight loss drug, was a compound that it was tweaked from a compound found in Gila monster venom. You can look it up. Just type in Gila monster venom semaglutide. So they're actually, I mean, they are seriously making medications now that are derivatives of animal venoms, like reptile venoms. Okay. Now, why they all of a sudden started going and testing his blood for snake venom and ant venom and whatever venoms, it sounds, I don't know. These are the days. Okay. We live in the times of the greatest deceit ever. There's a book that talks about this. It's called the Bible. So we live in the times of greatest deceit. Now, is it a thing where people, I'm not saying this is what happened, but could people just make shit up to sell stuff? Right. And Amma was saying Stu Peters was the one who brought out the snake venom stuff. He is on the popularity list or the popular list. Yes, he is now, isn't he? And if they were going to come up with a protocol to sell to people that involved tons of supplements, if you had somebody almost die from it and then they were fixed, would that be a great way to sell it? Yeah. Are people just terrible liars for money these days? Yeah. I don't know. I don't know about what's going on here. But as I can show you, as I will go over, as Dr. Mawson wrote about this virus problem, is that every single symptom of the virus problem and every single symptom of the shot could be shown to be a side effect of retinoic acid ingestion. But nobody's talking about that, except me and Anthony Mawson in his paper. So, so here's the thing I want you to know about people who are against the shots and who are against the diseases. If they are big time, they're controlled. No doubt in my mind. I don't care if they are not canceled completely by getting credit money not flowing to them anymore. They're not helping you. The bad guys have to control both sides. The bad guys control conventional medicine and they control the big names in alternative medicine. The bad guys control the most pro-shot people. The bad guys control the most popular anti-shot people. They control both sides. They have to control the narrative and they want it to go. Remember, they want division. That's what they want. So they have to polarize both sides. They have to do this. This is the game. This is what you have to see. No one is coming to save you. That's a big name. None of the big names are going to save you. They will all crumble and quit at the last minute. They are fake. One of the reasons they've pushed all the superhero movies and all these movies where a hero comes and saves the day is because everybody wants to be saved by somebody else. So they push these narratives in Hollywood and on TV that someone's going to save you. That's not you. So you don't have to do any work. Trust the plan. You ever heard of that? Trust the plan. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just sit back. Just sit back. Trust the plan. That just no. So anybody who's big time out there, if they want them dead, they'll be dead. Yeah, Operation Trust. There you go. If you haven't looked up Operation Trust, you should. History doesn't repeat, but it sure does rhyme. So if you have no idea what Operation Trust is, you need to look it up and then realize that they're running the same thing again today. And if you think there's presidential candidates out there who are not controlled, I got a whole nother thing coming for you, because they wouldn't let them get up there. Come on. People who run a casino, like they're on your side. You know what casinos are? They're giant money laundering operations. Come on, folks. They're criminal operations for money laundering. They've just been legalized. Anyway. Quick question from Mina asks, is vitamin A toxicity from food and cod liver oil just as bad as Accutane? I've said this before. The people who are the hardest to fix, Accutane, Retin A, the synthetic retinoids. Now, I want you to know how dangerous these are. I have had a person contact me before who took one pill of Accutane and got neuropathy in her hands from it. One pill. That is how, well, thank you for that, Mina. I appreciate the super chat, even after I started answering it. The next people that I've seen who are the hardest to fix are the people who overdose themselves on liver. Now, I had a thought just as I was, because we're going over this today and because the copper toxicity thing came up, I had a quick idea come to my mind because, right, we talked about vitamin A toxicity and we're seeing copper toxicity being another big problem. Well, so you asked about cod liver oil. Cod liver oil is bad, But why would eating liver be worse? Where do we store vitamin A? In the fat of the liver. So when you think of cod liver oil, folks, think of cod fatty liver extract, right? They're just, you get these cods and they have fat in their liver. So they're doing an extract of the cod's fatty liver to put it into a nice little bottle for you to drink and gag while you try to drink it because your body's saying, don't drink this poison. But anyway, what is not in, let's say, vitamin A supplements, cod liver oil, fruits and, well, actually, I won't say fruits and vegetables, but what's not in those that is in, let's say, high doses of liver is copper. Copper is in liver. So liver has tons of vitamin A and it has tons of copper. And what was I just talking about earlier that's harder to fix? It seems over the long term, it takes longer to fix, is the copper toxicity. So does that make sense now? It makes sense to me why liver folks, the people who overdosed on liver, all you freaking meatheads out there, and the WAP people, and you people who think organ meats are going to save the world. No, you just keep eating your toxic garbage until you realize that you effed up. You effed up real bad. But yeah, so we got vitamin A and copper toxicity from liver, but the Accutane seems worse. And now that whole eating liver thing makes more sense to me. For a while, I couldn't figure out why are the people who did a lot of liver and did it really until they messed themselves up. Why were they almost as bad as the Accutane people? And now you just saw me figure it out in my own little head live today. So thank you for that super chat, Mina. Actually, that's a good point, Christina. I just saw this. Christina says Ron Paul and RFK Jr. may both be examples of those who ran/running for president who can never, quote, be elected or chosen, but will do some good by educating people about important things. Lots of people to listen to. Never, ever forget that disinformation must have enough truth to it for people to take it seriously. But then what's the key thing of disinformation? They mix in lies, or so you know how it's like, it's not technically lying if you don't give people all the information, right? So they leave out very specific information, or they don't touch very specific topics, which Pierre kind of touched on in the chat, which I'm not going to touch on. So they need division. That's what they need. So Maggie Caspin asked, hi, Dr. Smith, how can seniors improve their ability to walk longer distance without getting out of breath? Thanks so much. Well, we do see a lot of people, potassium deficiency, which I have very specific long articles in the program about. Potassium deficiency can absolutely help with breathing issues. Magnesium deficiency, getting that fixed. Topical magnesium being the best for that. Those are like the simple, easy, quick things. Of course, you can just walk longer. You can get a step counter, get a watch that's a little step counter. I don't even know if they make them without Bluetooth anymore. I just went and contacted, I was looking up ear protection for shooting, because I do shooting competitions, and I wanted some of the in-ear ones. And I found this company that says they had ones that could like boost the sounds. It can reduce the gun sounds. It could boost your other hearing, but it also had Bluetooth on it. I specifically wrote the company because I saw it and I was like, this is cool, but I need to be able to turn off the Bluetooth. And I emailed them and I said, can I turn off the Bluetooth so there is absolutely no signal coming out of this thing into my brain? And they said, yes, you can turn it completely on, completely off. You could turn on the sound boosting completely on, completely off. I was like, okay, cool. That's what I want. So a lot of those step counters, the digital ones, you can't turn off the Bluetooth anymore. There was like 2 that used to exist fairly recently, within the last couple of years, that you could turn off the Bluetooth on. And actually, like you had to hit a button to engage the Bluetooth. That's what I want. Because I had a buddy, for those of you out there wearing iWatches or these big fancy watches that have Bluetooth in them or Wi-Fi in them, If you have a problem with that wrist, if you have pain in that wrist, you're electromagnetically frying your wrist, and that's why it hurts. I had a buddy who got wrist pain within 2 weeks of wearing his new iWatch or whatever. Don't wear EMF sources. This should seem obvious. No matter how bad you want, like this watch, this is a replica of like the very first Navy SEAL watch. It was a Canadian company. There's nothing digital about this. That's the only watch I want nowadays. So I don't want any fancy watches. But Maggie, so you could, if you were counting your steps, you could very simply just walk a little more. I mean, there is, the more you do it, the better you get at it. The SAID principle, the specific adaptation to imposed demands. If you want to walk more, you kind of got to walk more. But you could go up by, 200 steps a day, 500 steps a day. Realize that you're going to have good days, you're going to have not so good days. But so what the biggest things that I would be working on would be what I call electrolytes, which would be, I include magnesium in the electrolytes, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. And when I say sodium, it doesn't necessarily mean you need more salt. It just means make sure you're not getting crappy salt, which I go over in the program. And then we work on the long-term toxicities. And so if somebody is a senior, the sad but true thing is seniors are even more toxic than everybody else simply because they've been alive longer. You've had more time to accumulate toxicity. Pierre, we may want to write this one down too. What are the things that make it so people are going to have a longer time detoxing and potentially a harder time detoxing? These are the patterns that I've seen in the research and in my own experience. Okay, the older somebody is, right? This makes sense. They just had more time to accumulate more toxicity. The more intense their physical problems, the more intense their disease conditions. So the stronger it is, okay? The higher number of disease conditions that they have, right? So it's spreading. Weak links keep breaking. One weak link breaks, another weak link breaks, another weak link breaks. And then the older the person is, well, I already said that one. Sorry, the older the person is was number one. The more female the person is, okay? Ladies, you're just slower at detoxing. And you store more of it. You make more body fat in general. And you don't make as much bile. I'm sorry, this is all in the research. You're just slower. And then, let me see, age, sex, not gender, sex, right? More conditions, deeper conditions. There's probably another one. Those are the only ones that are coming to my head right now. Those mean it's going to take longer. The younger somebody is, kids can, when you do the right things for kids, they detox fast. And it's usually not as much suffering for them as long as the parents are watching. Do I work with kids? Yes, but I'm really working with the parents. So if you as a parent are not going to be fully on board and doing all this research, then I can't work with your kid. This is not just a here, take this pill thing. Okay? This is, you live in a toxic world. Everything is being organized against you. You have to learn how to avoid and to counter all these things that they are doing against you. It's just the way it is. It sucks, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't want people who want to come into the program and just want it to be, can I just take this pill? What's the magic pill dose for me? What do I need for zinc? I don't know. You need it, but I don't know what your dose is. Somebody says, how much gas do I need to put in my car? I'd say, I don't know. What kind of car do you drive? Right? Even just having tires that aren't fully inflated would make it so you don't get as many miles to the gallon. Do you see how all of this stuff works? Can't just give, like, people who, the fact that they're probably giving a shot protocol means that it's garbage, right? Protocols are garbage because everybody's different. Does this make sense? You can't have an automobile maintenance protocol for every car on the road with just one list of stuff. It doesn't work that way. I mean, sure, you could say change the oil, but then somebody goes, well, what kind of oil do I put in? How often do I change it? What oil filter do I need? Right? And then you go, well, this is different. This is different. This is different. This is why protocols suck ass. I'm fired up today. Must be because it's a Monday. Hope that answered your question, Christine. Let's see. Christine was saying my analogies are always so good. Well, thank you, Christine. Actually, I always, as a personal trainer, I started noticing that I was good with analogies when I was trying to get people to like move their body in a certain way, figure out a bunch of different, you'd have to do an analogy until people got it. And one analogy for one person might not work for another person. Sometimes you had to touch people on like their back to get their shoulder blades to move. You got there so they can connect their brain to it. Sad thing about detox and stuff like this is oftentimes people have to kind of kick their own ass by making mistakes until they get it. Because as is said, we learn the best from I saw that I stalled. The screen stalled. Learn the best from things we have physically experienced. So sometimes we have to physically experience something, feel it in our body to get it. And most of you, if you look back at the things you learned where you were like, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, until all of a sudden it happens to you, or I don't get this until it happens to you. And then you go, oh, now I totally get it. Now I'm never going to forget it. Right? So, but don't get me wrong. There's lots of people out there with good messages. When we talk about controlled opposition and stuff, there's lots of people out there with good messages, 70%, 80%. 90%, but they can still be putting in just enough to cause lots of problems. So back to the start. John, I like your wah, 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 wassa, 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 wassa. I thought it was the Charlie Brown thing, the wah, 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 wah. So AA asks, is floating stool connected to the amount of bile being dumped? No. Floating stool is connected to how much kind of fiber is in the stool. Like if you have a ton of fiber, like vegans will say that their stool floats. First of all, whether your turd floats or doesn't is completely, if you want to talk about a social construct, right? Out in nature, no animals are pooping in water to see if it floats. That would be dumb, right? You don't want to poop in your water source. Don't poop in the water. That's a good idea. But we humans, we've decided that why do we poop into the water? Because the water keeps the smell from going as much into our house. The water when you have a clean toilet, a flush toilet, the water is there as a barrier to the smell down in the sewer. When you poop into the water, there's less smell. That's why we have water in the toilets. When you go into a public toilet and there's a low water toilet and that toilet stinks because there's not enough water. Okay? So, or these like new like urinals where they don't have much water in them and they always smell like piss. That's what the water is in there for, is to keep the smell from being so bad. Whether your shit floats or not is completely a modern construct, and people have decided to take that and then say this is good or bad. If your shit is floating, you probably either like if we were to say vegans, they often have floating poop and they love to hold that out as like, this is a wonderful thing. My poop is floating. I'm like detoxed, right? The women are like, I lost my period. I'm so clean now that I do not need a monthly cycle. That is the most delusional BS I've ever heard in my life. You're infertile and you think you're so clean that you don't need a monthly cycle anymore because your body is refusing to carry a baby. No. Anyway, so vegans will often say that their poop floats and that's a good thing. It's either Poop floating is either too much fiber in the poop. So there's not a lot of other stuff, because high protein diets, your poop will sink. So a vegan diet, would it be generally low protein and crazy high in fiber? Yes. The other thing that can make poop float, too much fat in your poop, which could either be from you just eating too much of it, or you don't have enough bile to do what it needs to do. Right? People with gallbladder problems, which is your bile. So when you eat a large meal, I've been over this before, but when you eat a large fatty meal, or your gallbladder is there to hold bile, to accumulate bile over time, and to squeeze it out when you eat a meal. The reason for this is so you dilute the bile on its way through, because it's like hot lava. It's going to damage everything it touches. And so you could either have the bile coating, like that Pepto-Bismol commercial, the pink coating the stomach all the way down and damaging your entire intestinal lining because there's nothing else there to dilute it, or you can mix that bile with food so that the bile is still going through your intestines, but it's only the stuff on the outside of what I call the food poop that is touching your intestines. Because now inside of the poop, the food poop that's moving through you, all that bile is diluted through it. Does that make sense? That is why we have a gallbladder. So when, let's say, people, especially women, start getting a lot of gallstones and they can't hold the bile in there and they're not able to digest their fats as well, or especially folks, if you've had your gallbladder removed, so you removed that reservoir, when you eat a lot of fat, you get steatorrhea. Steatorrhea is fat in your poop. Maybe you see the film, like the oily film on the top of the water. Maybe your poop floats. It usually smells terrible. And they call it bile acid malabsorption. But it's just toxic bile, and it's just not absorbing your fat. Your body wants to get rid of that fat. If you can't absorb it, it wants to get rid of it. So that is, a floating stool doesn't, usually we can figure out, if I were to question somebody about their diet, like, how much protein are you eating? Are you a vegan? How much fiber are you eating? If you eat a high-fat meal, do you get the shits? And then usually, I don't know if you guys know this, but when people get the high-fat meal crap, the shits, it's like they're sitting at the table and they're eating, and they're like, all of a sudden their stomach goes, and they're like, oh my God, I got to run to the bathroom. And they run to the bathroom and it's just disaster. Like, this does not take a long time. This is like by the time they're done eating, if they get that far. And usually they come out, and I've heard people say this, they're like, I knew I shouldn't have eaten that. It was too much fat. And it's like, yep. But no, so this is where context, as Gabriel was kind of saying about the context earlier, context is everything. We want to know the different reasons why poop might float. Could it be an indicator of something that is off? Sure. But do we hang one quality on it? Is it just the amount of bile being dumped? No, we don't do that. No, because diarrhea sure doesn't float, and diarrhea would have the most amount of bile in it. And constipated poops, like little rabbit poops, those don't float. Those have very little bile in them. So no, the bile is not it. So bile by itself is not it. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Oh, well, we're at 11:56. I got to start my inner circle in just a couple minutes. So let me see if there's any super quick questions. JS asks, hello, doc. How does soda and diet soda affect us humans? Let me try to go through the list really quick. Aluminum cans are poisoning your brain and your liver. High fructose corn syrup has more calories in it than the grams of sugar it shows on the label. They've actually done this. They've analyzed high fructose corn syrup, and there are way more calories in it than the grams of sugar on the label. So somehow they have folded up the high fructose corn syrup, and it contains even more calories than it should. High fructose corn syrup contains mercury. I am not so sure that drinking carbon dioxide as part of carbonated sodas is a good idea to do it regularly. Drinking calories. Drinking calories is the quickest way to get fat, bar none. Drinking sugar is the fastest. What else would there be? I mean, we don't need to get into the acids they add, the phosphoric acid, that's poison. We don't need, I mean, there's the artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are straight poison. I don't care what anybody else on the internet says. Artificial sweeteners are $1 billion industry. They will pay scientists to make up science. They are straight poison. So whether you have regular soda or fake soda, it's all poison. Oh, I've been over this. I have an article in the Love Your Liver program showing that all of the major artificial sweeteners have been connected to liver injury, aka cholestasis, aka toxic bile leaking into your blood. So there is absolutely not a single benefit to drinking soda. Now, I've been working on my kids because my kids are not always with me, so they can develop very bad habits when they're with the other person. But my boy had gotten into a little bit of soda drinking when he went to restaurants. So we don't go to restaurants that often, so I wasn't terribly worried about it. But what I'd make him do when he was with me is I'd be like, you have to get a clear soda. So at least we're not getting the colorings and the caramel color and all that other BS. But then I just moved him. He just started drinking apple juice at a restaurant. And he was like, I really like the apple juice. I think I'm going to stick with that. And I was like, bravo. So I'm letting him learn. So you parents out there, if I were to always, no soda, no soda, no soda, no soda, I don't keep it at the house. I had made it into a special thing only when he went to restaurants, but I did put a limit on it of the clear soda. And we would try to get the like Sierra Mist, which was like real sugar. So if you can so you can make these things better. It's like, if you're going to smoke cigarettes, don't smoke the mainstream garbage ones. Like they make organic American spirits, like smoke the organic cigarettes. If you're going to poison yourself, at least poison yourself organically. Okay. Right. You can always make better choices. You can always take something that's bad for you and make it less bad. So like with soda, clear soda, real sugar soda, not out of an aluminum can soda. There are those organic sodas. So you can make this a lot better, even if you're gonna do something. But so now my kid, right? He had gotten into and also he got into chocolate milk. I was like, come on, like so. But we went to breakfast the other day and he ordered apple juice and he really liked it. And he was like, I think I'm going to switch to apple juice. And I didn't have to force him to do that. So we moved in a very good direction. And now I don't have him feeling like he actually said he felt better after the meal than if he had had chocolate milk. I taught him through his own experience, he felt it in his body. So now he knows it. So now if he's at a restaurant and he says, Dad, can I get chocolate milk? I'll be like, why don't you order an apple juice, son? You feel better. You feel better when you do that. Oh, yeah, okay. And it may take him a couple times to remember it. But then I don't have these kids who feel like they were deprived because they didn't get to drink soda ever. And then I've solved the problem, but they're the solution, not me. Okay? But yeah, soda's poison. I mean, it's straight poison. There's not a single health benefit to it unless you were like dying in the desert of dehydration and low calories and you needed something quick. And even still, there could be better choices. So, but how does it affect us? I mean, how do I explain that poisons affect us negatively? I don't know how to explain that. There's tons of stuff. I think I went through them. I think I covered them pretty well. So, okay. So I think we're all done, folks. I think I covered all the super chats. Thank you very much for all the super chats, folks. I really appreciate it. My website, nutritiondetective.com. You can get all of my other social media and stuff in the information box below. Yeah, got all sorts of stuff going on. Have a very interesting Twitter thread coming out very soon. I just got to finish it this week. And I will see you all. So we're going to be at Mondays now. Mondays, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, which right now is the same as California time, but not always. So anyway, we're moved to Mondays now. And I will see you all next week. Have a great week. Bye now.